Hey everyone, welcome to my top 5 games of 2017 list video thing. I've decided to separate this list into multiple videos, partly because I have quite a lot to say about each of the games on this list, and I don't want to have one massive video about this topic that some of you may not be interested in viewing the whole way through. It's just more accessible this way, and it's also easier for me to record and edit when it's broken up into these manageable chunks. Anyway, I love making these kinds of videos because they're fairly easy to write. I don't need to stress too much about justifying what I say about a game because this is incredibly subjective and often even irrational for me. In other words, you may not only find my placement of these games on this list completely different to your own, but it could also be that even I think that some games mentioned earlier on in the video are actually better designed and realized than the ones later on. It's more about how I feel at this moment about my experiences with these games, which is affected by all kinds of external and seemingly unrelated influences that I may not even mention here. It's impossible for me to explain exactly why some of these games work better for me than others. Regardless of all this, I will still attempt to explain my placement of these games on this list, what I liked and didn't like, because if I didn't do that, I might as well just end the commentary right here and roll a montage. Furthermore, I'm inevitably going to point out the bad more than the good aspects of these games. As much as I wish it wasn't, it's far easier to see and discuss the negative elements of a game, especially in such strong titles where the bad stands out more amongst the totally rad. But rest assured, if it's on this list, I obviously hold the game in high regard, and perhaps that's why I'm so critical of it, because I want it to be even better. Plus, I'm just generally critical, and I'm working on having a less negative mindset. But now's not the time. A couple more things. As always, my opinion of these games is likely to change in the future, and I must also make it clear that I wasn't able to play every game that came out this year. There are so many that I missed, hence why this isn't a top 10 list. I'm currently playing some which you might expect to be included, but they won't be because I haven't experienced enough of them to come to a conclusion, and even though I might hold them in high regard, I don't think placing them on this list would be fair to the others I've finished or said games themselves when I haven't yet seen enough of what they have to offer. One of these such games is Persona 5, which I already love just for its aesthetic, soundtrack, and world building / lore. The second honorable mention goes to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which I love for the same aesthetic reasons and also because it is simply one of the best designed open world games ever. Like a lot of Nintendo games, it is determined to provide a very consistent experience that doesn't often get bogged down with crap that doesn't aid that experience. As far as I can tell at this point in time, it's about adventure and survival, and so everything in it is there to support that. I only recently got a Nintendo Switch, so I have a lot left to see of Breath of the Wild. But even a dozen hours in, I already understand what all the praise is about. Anyway, let's get on to the main event. My top 5 games of the year. Obviously, beginning with number 5. Prey is a game that I have a sort of love-hate relationship with, and one which I would have put higher on my list if it weren't for a few significant issues. It's a very complicated game to talk about if you look under the surface, and one which I think I've failed to properly convey in the past and will probably struggle to going forward. I love the fact that it is built entirely as a throwback to classic immersive sims and 0451 games like System Shock, BioShock, and Deus Ex, replicating their themes concerning choice and identity in virtual worlds, as well as gameplay philosophy surrounding the freedom of player expression and emergent gameplay and all that. Prey does a lot of these things very well, with clever, freeing level design and interesting tools and weapons that allow for a wealth of small, player-driven stories in a beautiful, rich, and extremely detailed game world with a striking, grungy, retro-futuristic aesthetic and tons of hidden, smaller scripted narratives witnessed through environmental storytelling that had me very excited and motivated to explore this place. Prey also doesn't really succeed at doing anything to reinvent the wheel, though. Instead, it kinda just reintroduces it. Aside from a couple unique hit-or-miss tools and enemies, and an incredible opening that clearly establishes the themes and tone of this genre, it feels as if it's been designed just to tick all the boxes which define these kinds of games. Or at least it takes ideas and mechanics from each of them and attempts to merge them into one, which certainly isn't a bad thing. You could probably say something like that about the other games on this list and their respective genres. And even if it's not super original, there aren't a lot of games like Prey being made, and it's nice to experience them again with such great visuals and Arcane's fantastic artistic vision that always astounds me. The music is good, but it doesn't always work well during certain gameplay moments. Heavy distortion and synth tracks can be confused for sound effects and vice versa. The sound effects themselves are great and really reinforce the haunting atmosphere of this decaying space station. Furthermore, the overarching plot grew much less compelling for me as it progressed, and attempting to play it through a second time only amplified the significance of this issue to me. This game is just far too long for the story it's trying to tell. Its story isn't well paced, and I didn't like the way it concluded either. The post-credit scene tries to be a big twist reveal thing, and although it's hinted at numerous times throughout the game and kind of embraces the whole philosophy surrounding it, it's simply too little, too late. The game seems to treat you like a dog, dangling the bone that is its ending in front of you, only to rip it away numerous times when you think you almost have it. And then when you get to the end, it just feels very unremarkable and on the nose, even if it is thematically relevant and encompasses the whole idea behind the game and others like it, as I said. I do like the main and side characters, but I don't think any of them are particularly memorable aside from your brother, Alex Yu. Most quests in this game are prolonged fetch quests which have you backtracking throughout the station constantly, and unbearably long loading screens in between areas on consoles make this an even bigger problem, especially during the obnoxiously prolonged finale. The station itself is incredible though. You've heard me and others say this before, but I really mean it when I say that this space station feels like an actual place. You not only traverse the inside of it, but also the space surrounding it. Though the biggest issue I experienced with Prey was nothing I can blame the game for. I think the primary reason Prey isn't higher on this list is because of how I went about playing it. I rushed through this game the first time, desperate to get my review out a week after release. I should have expected this to be a long game, one which simply was not designed to be completed in this time frame. And I guess that's partly why the ending felt so much worse to me. But I actually made it on that self-enforced deadline. And the video itself isn't badly produced in my opinion, but the actual content seriously suffers as a result of my approach. At that point, I didn't really get the game, and I still don't fully. I was supposed to make a second part to that video, but I didn't because of how burnt out I was from playing and forcefully discussing the game. And when it came to writing part 2, I was becoming increasingly discontent with part 1. I'll leave it at this for now. I believe Prey is a brilliant game. It's beautiful and smart, but flawed. It's a game which I believe deserves your time, even if it doesn't always respect it. And I'm not just saying that because of how I went about playing it. As much as it doesn't really do anything new in this genre, it still stands out amongst the sphere of AAA dross and should be supported at the very least for the fact that it actually encourages thought in gameplay and with regards to its themes. And that concludes the first video on my top 5 games of 2017. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'd like to know what your 5th favorite game of the year is, and why. I'd be even more interested to hear where Prey itself fits on your list if you've played it. I really struggled with this game, and it could easily have been higher up on this list, but I sort of ruined the experience for myself, and I wish I went into it with a more genuine mindset, because I fear I may never feel as strongly about this experience as it deserves now that I've tarnished the feelings I associate with it to an extent. Anyhow, thank you for watching, I hope you enjoy your day, and I'll see you all in the next part.